Everyone, this is Debbie Neiman with Hope Trust. We're going to go ahead and get started talking about special needs planning. Hope Trust, just to give you a little bit of a background, is a company created, founded, led, and staffed by family members with loved ones with special needs. We truly get it, not just as professionals working with individuals who happen to have an array of disabilities in their families, but also as people who face many of the same challenges that you are in your personal lives. So with that, let me tell you a little bit about my story. This is my daughter, Cecilia. She's 17 years old. She was born 3 months premature, has cerebral palsy, medically complex with ever-changing list of providers and therapists, caregivers, medications. And some of the challenges that I was facing was that there was no one central place to gather all this information and the pertinent documents for everybody that was involved in her care. We're in the process with her being 17 and a half of transitioning from peds to adult care and services. And so I was struggling just trying to keep myself organized. Also making sure that as the information changes and the providers change and the documents are updated and everything, I was finding it a challenge and often forgetting to provide all the updated information to the circle of support that is involved in her care, or individuals were having thinking that they had the most updated information, but it was actually outdated. I'm divorced, another challenge that many of us families with children with special needs face. And so again, how was I going to keep, when I do most of the care and coordination for Cecilia, how was I going to keep her dad up to speed on everything so that if, God forbid, I got taken out by the proverbial bus, he was ready to hit the ground running. And then every time, unfortunately, in this space, it seems like there's quite a bit of change in turnover and staffing. So every time we got a new caregiver, a para, a nurse, she went to a different camp or anything. How was there an easier way to make sure that I gave everybody the most up-to-date information? So those were the challenges that I was facing for my family. And Hope Trust gave us not just peace of mind, but some flexibility. It helped get us all on the same page and organized, which at the end of the day meant better life, better family experiences, more time, free time, or at least more time, not just trying to focus on Cecilia and her care and keeping everything up to date. So as I go through this presentation, I will include some of my own family's experiences, as well as some of the clients that I have worked with. All right, so when we talk about special needs planning, there's really 4 major areas that we have to think about. First is the money piece. How much is it going to cost? Do we have enough? What are some ways to save money that's maybe tax efficient, those kinds of things. That's kind of where you would be working with your financial advisor, looking at ABLE accounts, those kinds of things. But before you can really assess how much it's going to cost, or at least how much additional you need out of pocket, you probably want to tap into government benefits and make sure that the loved one is able to tap into it, or at least is eligible. Take advantage of what's there, maximize those supports and services, because this decreases the out of pocket. The issue with government benefits, though, is generally speaking, they're needs-based, meaning the individual has to meet certain thresholds of minimums amount of income and assets. And so how do we go about doing that but maintain lifestyle? Again, I found many families that I've worked with are leaving money on the table because this is an art form in and of itself. So we'll go over a little bit of that. The legal aspect is what allows somebody to receive inheritance or gifts without it usually impacting government benefit eligibility. And so that involves things like special needs trusts, um, and those kinds of things, again, so that maybe your family says, we don't want to deal with government benefits now. That's great, but we always want to protect that eligibility, because who knows what it'll look like down the road as life changes or as family members are no longer here to help with some of that support. And then finally, how does all this planning translate into the individual and their unique needs and their strengths and their weaknesses and the concerns and the dreams and the lifestyle desired and the things that work and don't and all that. And that's where the life care plan and care coordination really comes in. So those are the four main pillars of special needs planning. So how does Hope Trust help you and your advisors answer these following questions? The four things that we found most families were still asking, even if they did have an advisor, financial advisor, even if they did the estate planning, those kinds of things. The questions that we saw a lot were, how much is it going to actually cost, and do we have enough? How will my successors have all the information that's needed and know the nuances of my loved one to support them well? Who will take care of my loved one when I'm no longer able or here to do so? And what can I do today to increase flexibility for our family? So addressing that first question, I have sat down with many families who have said, when I asked what their funding plan was for their loved one with special needs, they have said, I think we have enough, or whatever would have gone to junior with special needs is going into a special needs trust. But the question is it enough? Is that person going to run out of support, financial support during their lifetime? I know when it comes to my daughter, I don't feel comfortable with hoping or thinking I have enough. I want to know. And so the Hope Trust has a tool in its platform. We call it, well, we have a budget building tool as well as MITO, which stands for Meet Your Trust Objective. But it was developed in collaboration with Harvard Business School and Harvard Development Team to allow you to create a dynamic lifetime budget. Let's be real here. When you're talking about what it's going to cost for your loved one, if you're not here anymore, if you are a primary caregiver, it's probably going to look a little bit more. I've had families turn to me, well, it doesn't cost that much to support, junior right now. Well, great, but you are working part-time in order to provide that support, or you gave up your career. Who else is going to do that? I mean, the reality is we probably don't have, especially if the need is higher, or the support is higher, a long line of people standing outside the door saying, hey, I'll fill your shoes and I'll do it for free and make whatever sacrifices are necessary. So some, if not all, of what you are providing for your loved one may need to be hired out. I can speak very personally as a mom to a child with special needs. I probably serve the role of about 10 people. So making sure that when you're tapping into family members and close family friends, you may want to spread that responsibility. But anyway, some, if not all, is going to have to be hired. The other things that we need to think about are stuff related to disability and aging. So if your loved one has a neurodegenerative disability that right now maybe they can walk with a cane, but by the age of 30 or 35, they're going to be physically impaired, or most likely will be completely dependent on others for their physical mobility. That's something you need to add into the budget, because it's not just the support of people helping them, but probably you're going to be looking at making accommodations or living in a place that is wheelchair accessible. Same with vehicle adaptations. If your loved one uses an augmentative communication device or specific software, we all know those come with high ticket. Those are high price items. You're going to want to add that into your budget. Other things you want to think about is lifestyle. What is your loved one used to? Do they go to some adaptive camp every summer? Make sure you're adding that into the budget. Are they involved in Special Olympics? Those kinds of things. Vacations, travel, any of that. Make sure you add that into that budget. But again, things can change over the lifetime. And so we have a budget tool that allows for that. Also, some people with disabilities, depending on what that disability is, has a shortened lifespan. It allows you to account for that. When we think about somebody with Down syndrome, their longevity may be shorter. However, they have a higher propensity for early onset dementia. So while you may only live to be 60, or your loved one may only live to be 60, they may need 5 to 10 years of memory care. So again, when we're building that budget, our tool allows you to do that so that the cost of their care and their life can be included over their lifespan. So you can do that with your advisor. I'm going to be flipping back and forth between screens, so you'll see me stop share here. So I apologize for that, but let me show you what our tool looks like. So as you can see, here's our dashboard. This is our platform. And when we talk about finances, we really want to talk about, let's get a realistic budget here. And so many people struggle with this. So we built a budget tool, like I said, that's dynamic. It can be for expenses that are now, or expenses in the future, or expenses that we expect when mom and dad aren't here, or whoever that family member is, or close family friend. But it has everything itemized, including thinking about replacement costs of care that or support that loved ones are providing. You can enter in the defaults with the age of the person today. But if you're saying, like I was saying in the example with somebody with Down syndrome, let's say Junior's 20 with Down syndrome, but let's run a scenario of what does it look like if Junior needs memory care at age 50 and lives to age 60. You can change the start date and the end date. And again, this projected end date would be assuming death, or if an expense is only for a temporary period of time, that you can put that in. So it allows you to build that lifetime budget. In addition to that, when we're talking about finances, one of the questions we hear a lot is, do we have enough? Well, let's run an analysis. Now that we have a budget that is dynamic, of a realistic dynamic budget over the lifetime of the individual. And again, thinking about when we do this type of planning, and your advisor probably helps you with this, your financial advisor, but we plan for the worst and hope for the best. So, let's run a scenario of what if, the main family supporters die tomorrow. We can always dial that in or out. I know a lot of families have been hesitant or said, Junior's only 5, like we have no idea what's going to be available, what their function level is going to be. Well, what's their diagnosis? Let's go with what the middle of the road is right now. And as we know more information, then we'll dial that budget in a little bit tighter as we know more information. But let's get something pretty realistic instead of just kind of throwing a dart blindly and saying, well, I hope it's enough. With the assets, though, you can plug these all in. So like in my case, I have a couple of children. So not only can I put in, let's say, my primary residence, I can say that there is, a third of it's going to go towards funding Cecilia's special needs trust. So I can put in 33%. I still have a mortgage on my home. So I can also indicate that I have debt on my home and put in what the mortgage is today, so that when we run the analytics on this, it will take into account those things that are still there. Okay, let me flip back here. Now, you may be saying, okay, well, we don't even know what services are available out there. We don't know what government benefits our loved one will be eligible for. We don't even know what housing options there are. And we hear this a lot. And that's why we have additional services. So in order to create a decent budget, you probably do need to understand, like, well, where is Junior going to live if we're no longer here? And that may look very different if they're a minor versus once they become an adult. That's another piece that I find a lot of families forget. If Junior's, a minor right now, okay, it makes sense to go to their aunt or uncle or your sibling. But if we are looking at once mom and dad are 50, 60, 70 years old, you might need to start tapping into who's next in the next generation. Having somebody who's also going to be aging the same time you are isn't going to help your loved one if they have the propensity to outlive you. So looking at your other children, if you have any, or looking at cousins and stuff, and then tapping into those government benefits so that you have those lined up. But we have all types of a la carte services to help you and your advisor figure out exactly what needs to happen. I've had families sit down with me who mom and dad are nearing retirement and saying, okay, Junior's probably going to outlive us. He's lived with us our entire lives. We have no idea what options are even out there for him. And it can be very daunting and overwhelming. And so we have services that you can tap into to look at what are the government benefits, or if your loved one is tapping into government benefits, are they tapping into everything they're eligible for or maximizing what they already have? They can look at housing and accessibility needs and run an analysis and tell you what's out there, or do a cost analysis. For those that have younger kids, something that oftentimes can be a huge budgetary impact is as you're going through the public school system, right? If you're paying for all of your child's therapy services, but they could potentially be getting some through the school, we can help with IEP and education assessments. As well as obviously we want to get those services in place. We all know the earlier the intervention, generally the greater the impact on success for the individual. So again, we want to be here to help your loved ones. Other services that we have is we do help with when you're no longer here, who's going to manage that trust, who's going to be trustee, or, as you're aging. Or again, where we see this is that adult sibling says, yeah, mom and dad, I'll fill your shoes. I'll look out for my brother or sister with disabilities and take on everything you're doing. And 6 months down the road, they say, wait a minute, this is even more than I had any idea. I'm trying to be a spouse and a dad to my own children and have a profession. And now I'm trying to do 100% of what my parents were doing for my sibling. And I just can't, because there's only 24 hours in a day. So we do have that. And then finally, if you do not have experts for each of the different areas, if we don't provide this service, we can always refer you to those partners we have throughout the country to get you set up. You want to make sure that you're working with experts and advisors. So many families I've talked to are trying to do it on their own. This is really a subspecialty of planning, and it really involves a pretty intricate level of experts and more than just one. So you probably are going to need an estate planning attorney. And again, let me just be very clear. This is not the time, if you need a special needs trust, this is not the time to ask your brother-in-law who happens to be a divorce attorney. Special needs trusts are their own kind of subspecialty. So working with an estate planning attorney who is very familiar with special needs trusts is very important. Working with a financial advisor, you may need to also consider a tax accountant and have them all work together to really work out, a funding, what's the funding need, determine how we're going to best fund this plan. Again, I have yet to meet a family who says, I want to make sure that Uncle Sam gets a big portion of my assets when I pass away. So working with those tax accountants is really important. But your special needs trust will only be as helpful if you have things titled and the beneficiaries updated on your assets. And again, that's where your estate planning attorney and your financial advisor can work together on that. So we get all these things together, but you may be saying, well, how are my successors going to know everything that I know over my lifetime? And so that's where Hope Trust can really help. Again, we have that platform that I shared with you, and I'll show it again, but get all the people that are in that circle of support so everybody knows who's involved, and then also knows what their roles are. Get all the providers and the professionals on one platform so they're all connected and they have each other's contact information, and again, know whose role is what. Also, then all the information is aggregated in one centralized, organized place. If you're like most families, you probably have a list of current medications, maybe written somewhere on a piece of paper, hanging on the inside of a cabinet, but maybe, if a new medication gets added, you don't always add it because you forget. You may have some documents saved in a file, a paper file in your office somewhere or in a binder. Some other things may be saved on a computer or a thumb drive. Sometimes I've known families that have banker's boxes or shoe boxes of information saved all over the place. But if you're not here tomorrow, who's going to know where that information is, how to get it, and be able to utilize it? So we want to make sure that families have, one, the most updated information, but two, all of it centralized and organized in a secure place that's accessible to those people that are going to come in behind you. And so, hold on, I'll flip back so I can show this to you. This was something that made a huge difference in my life for my family. And again, like I said, it wasn't just the fact that my daughter has, I'm trying to remember how many providers between DME, DMS, all of her physicians, and now we have extra because we're in the process of trying to move over to adult care. It was completely crazy. So I was able to put all of the individuals that would need access to any of her information on our portal. Each user is granted individualized access, so they only see what they need to. But that way, everybody's working from the same document. That was something that was really a struggle for us, is that if a medication was updated, sometimes Dad didn't know that. And so he was working off an old piece of paper. That is terrible. Since this app is mobile, when I'm sitting in an appointment with my daughter, I have my phone open, and if there's changing a medication, I'm making that change right there. That way Dad knows, if God forbid, again, I get taken out by the proverbial bus on the ride home from that doctor's appointment, who the doctor was that prescribed it, what that new dose is, and what that new medication is. So it makes it very easy, as you can see here, of putting in all the kinds of information. Additionally, we have emergency contacts and everything. So my daughter is in school still. Her teacher is able to log in and has all that information readily available. So if anybody's phone number, email, any of that changes, or whoever those primary and secondary contacts are, they have it. And then finally, our document vault. For my daughter, it was a big deal because we had, again, two families because we're divorced, but we have her social security number or card and her birth certificate. We have her IEP. We have her latest overview of her medical information. We have her advanced directive, all of that. Well, Dad didn't necessarily care. We don't carry around a paper file with us whenever we leave the house, but we needed that. And especially with her turning 18 here shortly, once we have guardianship, so that doctors can talk to us when she needs medical care, we'll have all of that and it'll be readily available because we can access it from our phone. And again, those documents, we can limit who can access them. So on my daughter's, her social security card and her birth certificate, it's just me and Dad that have access. No one else does. Her case manager is on here. My daughter's has a Medicaid waiver. And so that case manager is able to log on. I was getting emails and calls all the time from her on a regular basis, asking who her current providers were and who her current medication, what her current medications are. I don't have to do that anymore. She just logs in. So it saved me time. I think we all have looked for ways to make our lives a little bit easier and less complex. I do see that there was a question up there. Whoops. And I will get to those at the very end, just so I can make sure that I stick to the time here. So another question we get is not just, well, how will my successors have all the information, but how will they know everything they need to know? And that's where a life care plan comes in. Now, if you've done your estate planning with an attorney, they may have had you do a letter of intent. And people sometimes confuse these two. A letter of intent is really just kind of a couple-page document that's kind of says, these are our dreams and hopes for our loved one. There may be some other, information in there, but it's a couple-page document that oftentimes is pretty static, gets thrown in with the estate plan, and like the estate plan gets put up on the shelf, and maybe in 15 or 20 years, people remember to bring it down, blow off the dust, and maybe update it. But where is the family and medical history? Where's the social, emotional, behavioral, educational, vocational information, likes, dislikes, dreams, fears, goals, all the different details of information. I can tell you with my daughter, just the medical piece alone is insane. And I know it, and I had it all in my head for the most part, but it's all over the place. And so that's where it's really helpful for those coming in behind you. If it is taking an entire lifetime, or, in my daughter's case, 17 years to figure out what works and what doesn't, the people coming in behind you, are they going to get another 17 years, or you're okay with them taking another 17 years to figure out what you did? And so I don't want that. Why recreate the wheel? And that's where the platform has really helped. And again, I'll show you this with this life care plan. We have a 6,000 question database. Now, nobody answers all 6,000 questions. That would be nuts. They're smart linked. But here, I'll start here. It asks, how much support do they need, in normal activities of daily living? For my daughter, she's completely dependent on somebody to go to the bathroom, but someone else may just need verbal prompts. It asks you those kinds of questions. Those are not the things that come to my mind first. When somebody says, what do we need to know about Cecilia? Well, she has these diagnoses, she's nonverbal, whatever, but this asks the nitty gritty, when, does she communicate a different way? Yes, my daughter actually does. Let me tell you how she communicates, with her eyes, and you have to ask questions a certain way for her to clearly communicate. She says things verbally, but her enunciation is terrible. And in my head, because I've been with her for 17 years, I hear what she means, but a stranger doesn't hear it. They hear what she actually sounds like. And so being able to list out, here's the different phrases and what it means, imagine how much easier that is for whoever's coming in. Anyway, so it asks all those kinds of questions. Everything that you can possibly think of is in here, and they're all smart linked. If you indicate that your loved one has a certain diagnosis, it unlocks those questions. But if you don't indicate they have a different diagnosis, you're not bothered with those questions. It asks, what are good birthday gift ideas? Does this person travel? Where are good places for them to vacation? How do they get there? How much support do they need? What level of care? Because this is going to not just help the caregivers, but when you're no longer here and you've done all this planning, like I was saying, the special needs trust and it's funded and all that, that's going to help the people that are left behind figure out, well, how do we take this money or these assets and do what you intended and what you want for your loved one? So it creates this great document, and anytime you make an update there, it's automatically updated here. So with the click of a button, as you can see, it says full care plan. I call it the book of Cecilia or the book of whomever, but it gives everything you could possibly need right there. And again, the only people that have access to creating that are the people that have been granted access. So those that need it, great, but it makes it very easy for me. Anytime my daughter has a new school year, she goes to a new camp, she has a new caregiver, I can download this and either email it or print it off and hand it to the person. They have the most up-to-date information. I can say, here's your start. Now you get to, you can hit the ground running, knowing about my daughter. So it makes a huge difference there. I can tell you that it's a little bit daunting trying to get all the information in there. But again, breaking it down and just doing a little bit at a time, when you finally get done, oh my gosh, the peace of mind and the amount of stress that went away was incredible, that I didn't even realize that I was carrying on my shoulders. But also keeping it up to date is super easy. Okay, so again, what can I do today to increase flexibility for our family? Well, setting up the plan, that's number one. Again, like I mentioned, it can be daunting, but if you don't either have the time or anything with technology is concerning to you, we have a service with nurse case managers who can help gather that information for you, work with you on that, and input it all for you. If you don't have a special needs trust and you don't have an estate planning attorney, or yours isn't well versed in special needs trust drafting, we actually have a tool built into our platform that asks questions. It has a completely intake survey, and then will generate a customized draft, a customized special needs trust. All of our trust documents have been reviewed by leaders of the Special Needs Alliance. You would still need to take it to local council for review and execution, because all 50 states have some different estate planning laws. But if you don't have somebody, we're happy to refer you to somebody that we know. For my daughter, this really has been having this platform has really made a difference in just freeing up time. I don't know about you, but I joke all the time that I need a clone and a 36-hour a day and no need for sleep to keep up with just normal adulting plus all of her stuff. This has taken a huge burden off my shoulders to be able to easily and quickly export emergency contacts and hand them off to somebody, generate that life care plan. Like I said, the document vault, that was one of my biggest concerns, is if my daughter was with her dad and had a medical emergency, would he have the important pieces of paper that were needed? He does now, because he always has his phone with him. Her current meds, that was another one, is making sure, again, not just so that he was aware, but if she went down when she was in his care, what's one of the first questions that an ambulance or the EMS is going to ask, or the ER? What are her current meds? He now has that right at his fingertips, as well as his providers. So it's been a wonderful thing for our family. And I just feel like no matter whether we have a new PCA or I'm sending her to CAP or she is a new para, I can easily download the document. It's up to date, and they have the latest and greatest of kind of what they need to know about Cecilia. It also allows me to feel a little bit better when I need to go refresh. That's something I know we as parents oftentimes are not very good about, any self-care, but this way, when I leave her with a caregiver, or she's over with dad, or I take a vacation, I know that they have all the information they need. So again, and then finally, that we're in that process of transitioning from pediatric care to adult care, which is crazy in and of itself, but it helps keep me organized. I know what specialties I still need to transition. It keeps the case managers from calling me every other month, so that they know where we're at in the process and who her current providers are. And again, it just frees up time and also decreases my stress. Okay, so another question we get all the time is, who's going to take care of my loved one when I'm no longer able or here to do so? You know, I've had families say, like, I can never die, or they worry about the burden or the impact on their other adult children or family members when they're no longer here, and who's going to do all of that? You know, when I think about my daughter's medical care alone, I mean, I am making a lot of phone calls and making sure, following up, did this get done? Do we, you know, labs were drawn, but did anybody look at them? Do we need a follow-up appointment or to adjust medications? We all know on paper, it seems like it will all work great, but somebody's still got to be kind of there as the conductor of overseeing all of that care, whether it's medical, whether it's disability services, whether it's remembering to make sure that we renew those government benefits and going through those application processes and all of that stuff. And so that's really where Hope Trust has a service to do that. We have an interdisciplinary team. So we don't just have bankers, trust officers, and legal counsel, but we actually have clinicians. We have social workers, therapists, psychologists, nurses. We wanted to make sure, and again, because our company was founded by people that have loved ones with disabilities, we wanted to make sure that it made sense. If we are a trustee for somebody and they're having a they're acting out of the ordinary, or something's coming up, we wanted to make sure that our staff that's interacting is also trained, instead of you know, not identifying that maybe this is a cry for help, that they could intervene if needed be. So we have that here, and that's what our team does. Now, many families say, well, we have family members and we don't need that, or we're providing it now, we don't need it now, but we need it down the road. And so that's really, again, why we do a la carte services. Many of our families start with us and just do the platform at first. They may add in some of those services if they're really trying to whether it's government benefits analysis, housing analysis, when they get their loved one gets to that stage, or they're starting to look at what those options are. And then as mom and dad maybe are getting older, or the adult siblings stepping in more, whatever that may be, and saying, you know, I need to lighten this responsibility again, because I only have 24 hours in a day and I need to sleep at some point and I have all these other responsibilities. That's really where our team can come in. We can offer concierge services. So whether it is that care coordination, case management, making sure that, you know, they're in a great place and that it's working well, or if they need to hire a new PCA, and making sure that PCA gets up to speed and knows how to use the communication device. Or if it's simply, you know, Junior would like to take a vacation or needs groceries delivered, or whatever that may be, that's one of the services we can provide. We also provide special needs trustee services. So one of the things we find is that many families usually tap a family member to be a trustee, but don't understand the responsibility and role. Special needs trusts have to be utilized a certain way to, especially if government benefits are being tapped into, or if government benefits are planning on being utilized ever in the future. And so most people don't have the expertise or the knowledge of being a trustee, but they have a legal fiduciary responsibility, which means if they mess up or misappropriate those funds, they personally can be sued. Most family members don't actually want to put that responsibility on their loved one. Their biggest concern tends to be they want to make sure that that money is being utilized in the way they thought. That's where there's another role called trust protector. Family members can then, if they don't feel like a trustee is doing a good job, they can fire and find a new one. But then they can't be sued if there's a misappropriation or error of funds. So that's where we can step in. A lot of banks are not, will not take the role of trustee anymore on special needs trust, because there is such a bigger liability with them. Our company does that. And again, part of that is to make sure that we really understand and know that individual. That's where that life care plan and that platform is so important. So we really build our services around there. And we make sure that those government benefits are protected if we need to be aligning with POMS, which are the regulations that Social Security say for disabilities, those kinds of things. We make sure that we're keeping track of a good record of everything, filing those taxes, processing those distributions, making sure the bills get paid, whatever that may be. And then, like I said, making sure that when mom and dad or whoever those primary loved ones are no longer here, or if they want to free up some time, that we're making sure that everything's unique and individualized to that person. So just to recap, Hope Trust in special needs planning, the idea is we want to make kind of continuity of care. So we want to make sure that we have everything organized and easy for everyone to utilize. It's going to take a village, we know that. And so we want to make sure everybody's all together and on the same page, that each person knows what their role is. If there's any missing gaps, we can identify that and try and tap somebody or hire a service for that. It provides the tools that you can utilize with your current advisors. Again, here at Hope Trust, like I said, we were created by and led and staffed by families that have loved ones with disabilities. By no means is our company here to replace your advisors that you have. We're here to fill in between those gaps of what each expert does and complement the planning you already have in place. If you need advisors, we don't have a problem with referring you to those that we've worked with. But we help you answer those questions that keep you up at night. And again, because so many of us are not just professionals working in this space, but we have our own personal family members and loved ones with special needs, we treat our clients as we would want our own family members to be treated. And this way, with Hope Trust, it really brings all your planning together so that your loved one can have the life intended. All right. So here's my contact information if you have questions about special needs planning or what Hope Trust can do. I see there's a question up here. Okay, so somebody asked here, am I familiar with the CHSNC, the Charge Special Needs Consultant? I actually have that. Yes, I do think that is very helpful for financial advisors who are looking to get into this space or serve in this space. Um, and I do think there's not very many people. So just so you know, on the CHSNC, so this would be for financial advisors. The CHSNC, there's only about 300 nationwide, which is not very much when you consider that on the latest, I think, US Census said that 20% of families say they're supporting a loved one with disabilities, whether it's financially or providing the caregiving or both. So there really is it really does help to have the CHSNC, not just for street credit, but also because it provides quite a bit of knowledge. And so I would highly recommend it. There's just so much to this that needs to be known. And I think obviously the more knowledge that we have as professionals, the better. But I would highly recommend the CHSNC. If you're an advisor in that space and really want to get that designation. I think it just, like I said, there's not that many of us that have it in the country, and it really just speaks more. There are individuals out there who have been doing special needs planning for a long time without that designation. So it's not necessarily needed, but I do think that it's just another way to show, no different than if you have a college degree in something specific, or you've done a fellowship or residency or any of those kinds of things, or an internship in specific experience. I just think it adds to the credibility that you really do know what you're doing. What other questions do we have? Is there anybody else? You can put it in the Q&A or in the chat. I must have drank too much coffee because I can see that I did this in 41 minutes. So I must have been speaking quickly. So I apologize for that. Well, I appreciate everybody's attention today. I hope that you gleaned some information. This was just the tip of the iceberg of special needs planning. There is just so much to it, but we would love to see, if you're an advisor, how we can complement what you're doing and provide some support to your loved ones or answers to those questions that you may be getting asked by your clients, but that you may not have an answer to, as well as for families who are sitting there saying, we don't know where to start, or we have these questions that are keeping us up at night, and we want to make sure that we have either a backup plan or get things in order. We're happy to sit here and work with families, get them connected to the experts they need, and provide whatever kind of support we can at Hope Trust. And again, understanding that that may evolve over time, because what somebody needs today may look very different than when 10, 20, 30 years down the road. Well, we hope that you gleaned some great information today. Everybody stay safe and healthy, and we'll talk to you soon.